Welcome all of you fellow arcanists out there to the Frith Guild podcast, where we explore an amazing world full of mystical creatures and their partners. Our hosts are Eric Smith and Scott Wareham, and they'll be your guides along this journey through plague and skyships. So grab your eldrin, strap on your swords, and get ready to defend the innocent from evil. Throughout this series, if you have not caught up to the chapters being discussed today, we urge you to hit the pause button, grab your copy of this wonderful book, and catch up. We'll be here when you get back. While Vethica searches for information on the Capera and their labyrinth, Volke enlists Karna's aid in gaining access to the grand laboratories of New Nora. Not that they're planning a heist or some other overt criminal activity. Volke is an ethical nightmare arcanist after all. They just need to figure out Theasin's location, and the lab isn't open to the public. Karna agrees, but her price is that Volke share her bed for the rest of the journey. To sleep. She doesn't ask Volke to do anything which could get her infected, but she does enjoy seeing him flustered. But first, a piece of advice from the series. Step 14 on the Pillar of Rumors says, restraint. Without it, we harm ourselves and our surroundings. So with that, let's get into chapters 16 through 20 of Plague Arcanist.
Well, welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
I'm co-host Scott.
And today we're going over chapters 16 through 20 of Plague Arcanist, the fourth book in Shammy's series of the Frith Chronicles. And before we dive into the chapters, we want to just thank everybody for listening. And we do ask if you can show us some love by liking, commenting, or sharing on whatever platform you're listening to or watching to this podcast on. Please and thank you. We do really appreciate it. And we're getting really close to 1,000 downloads. We just hit over 900 not too long ago. So we're hoping to keep that going and soon hit that 1,000 download mark. And with that, we're going to dive on into chapter 16, Grand Laboratories of New Nora. So the heist is about to begin as we go to the Grand Laboratory of New Nora. And we first have to follow the yellow brick road as it leads us through the market district and it turns into a black road. Unfortunately, that leads us out to the Grand Laboratories. Volke is noticing as they're walking that there are sandstone golems that are all over the place. And he asks about this, and Adelgis is kind of like, what are you talking about? They've been here this whole time. And Volke knows that he hasn't been this unobservant, and Moonbeam does mention that sandstone golems are able to kind of like rock step. I don't know if that's what you would call it, but they're able to hide in similar rock. They're able to like melt into the rock itself of what they're made of. So sandstone golems into sandstone structures. So the further we go down the black line, the wealthier things get. And just like any other wealthy culture anywhere, the wealthier they are, the more they want to flaunt it and show that they are wealthy. And they have flowers that should not be growing in the desert. They have trees that should not be growing here. It is just, it's one of those, how wasteful are they about using this magic or these resources to flaunt their wealth? And again, this whole time that they're walking from the airship to the Grand Laboratories, Karna is Theasin. She has his persona perfect, his voice perfect, the way he talks perfect. And she says in his voice that she absolutely detests him. And she cannot wait to be done with this, as she wants to get rid of his form as soon as humanly possible.
Who doesn't hate this dude? Everybody that has run into him says that they detest him, they hate him, they can't stand him.
I think we've met like one person, maybe two people, the queen and his wife. And his wife, she didn't openly detest him, so...
Debatable. She was on the fence.
So Karna does a very good job impersonating him, and she doesn't even say thank you to the guy that holds the gate open. And Volke is now getting nervous, that they can run into this problem, because he was like, wait a minute, what about the people inside the laboratories? Oh my gosh, I didn't think about any of this. So they do walk in, they meet the captain of the guard there, and she's like, wait a minute, there's no way you could have gotten there and back in time. Like, what the heck? And basically, it's just like, I forgot something, or should I say my lackeys forgot something, and it's my fault for trusting that they could do this properly. So they're able to walk past, and they're able to look to his office area, which is as far away from everybody else as it can get, pretty much. And they realize that they need a key to get inside. And they're just standing there like, what do we do? So Volke ends up shadow stepping Adelgis and Karna Theasin into the office while the door is locked. And this absolutely wrecks Volke. Like, not sure if this is just the second bonding that has problems or if this is something to do with the plague that's causing him to hurt so much. But we know that he had difficulty even with just Jose. I can only imagine the strain that would put on him to have both of these people to shadow step with. And Volke is literally collapsed on the ground in pain. And Karna Theasin starts trying to help soothe him. And you know how, and just to straight help him out. Oh, sorry.
What a weird.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. He's being comforted by Theasin, who he hates. It's a little weird.
That'd be like Moonbeam comforting him physically.
Yes.
And even Luther gives Volke his cape to help soothe him. Luther doesn't take his cape off for anything.
Luther does also mention that, hey, I could have shadow stepped through the door and unlocked it and let you in, and then we would have avoided this whole mess. So don't forget that I'm here.
Like, hey, I want to help too, you know. So as they're searching through all of Theasin's stuff, Volke ends up finding vials of tan and pink sand. Again, like what Nero had given him back at Thronehold. And Volke also finds a map of the Grotto Labyrinth, which that's a pretty solid find right there. And as Dutch is looking through paperwork, he pretty much looks up and says, screw it. Take whatever you want. I give you permission as a member of the Venrover estate. So search this place and take it as you want.
And I'm guessing there's some more good stuff hidden in this office. With all the work that he does, there's got to be something good.
Oh, yeah.
That does bring us to Chapter 17, Legend of God. So a young woman comes in. She is a Minerva Owl Arcanist, so very similar to Theasin's wife. And Adelgis informs them that this is Seti, and Seti is his father's mistress. So we know that Theasin apparently has a type. He is into Minerva Owl Arcanist. And even this owl is uppity and snooty and high class.
You know, on the positive, Seti does shove a bunch of papers into Volke's hands, so you know there's probably some important paperwork in there.
The true source of power right there. So Seti also mentions the Autarch and the Second Ascension, which are two things that we're kind of coming up towards the end of the last book, so likely Theasin's involved in, to some extent, some of this ploy. So to get rid of her, Karna does end up sending her on an impossible mission to go learn more about frost snails. And she does say afterward that frost snails don't actually exist. She just wanted to mess with her.
I love this. Like, I love Karna's character because the fact that she sends Seti on this ridiculously impossible mission just to do it for the sake of doing it. Like, good job. I applaud that.
Yes, and she is all about the pranks. She's cutting out the pockets of his coat. She's making his chair wobbly by whittling down the edges. So she's doing everything she can to just annoy the man in the tiniest ways possible. Adelgis does mention that the bottom drawer is the secret stash of good stuff. So Luther goes in and does take advantage and unlocks the door for them. They open it up and Volke can feel this weird magic emanating from it. So there's these long black pieces of something. They feel like they emanate power, but when Volke hands it to Karna, to Adelgis, none of them can feel it as well.
So just saying, Luther needs to work on his lockpicking perk and get that to the expert level here, just like going in Skyrim or Fallout, because that's where the good loot is. And you know the whole thing, you got to loot everything you can that's valuable.
That was what I first thought of as well, the little Skyrim pick locks going.
Like, dang it, I broke it. And Luther even said in the very first book that he doesn't want to be the type of person that goes and picks locks and stuff and sneaks into areas like a thief. Just saying, Luther, not making the best example for yourself.
No, it's desperate times at this point. After they gather up their stash, Adelgis is finding a bunch of papers and things that he needs to go through. They do end up telling Karna about the Second Ascension what went on with, the rune stones and the world serpent and everything else that the Frith Guild is involved in at this point as well.
And as chapter 18 picks up in Damaged, Volke explains that he got a similar feeling with the world serpent scale before he made the shield. And he has a similar feeling with these bones that he picked up out of the bottom drawer. And since they're in the bottom drawer in the super secret hiding stash that he doesn't want anybody to take, because, that isn't completely obvious that it's locked and that's where the stash should be.
Definitely not the first drawer I would also check.
The dude's a simp. He's all intelligent and stuff, but... So as he's feeling them, Volke is starting to crave magical power. And this is kind of where we see that arcane play kind of playing a role in that. He's starting to lose a little bit of himself.
And that craving of power when you didn't crave power before has just got to be a scary feeling of, something inside of me is changing.
Especially with him knowing that he's got the plague and knowing that this is kind of like the path that he's going down. So they're leaving the grand laboratories and they see Jevil. And Volk's probably like, please don't see me. Please don't see me. And of course, Jevil recognizes Volk as being the guy that beat the crap out of his guild at the tournament and being Zelfri's apprentice. I guess no longer apprentice. That brings Jevil into the whole like, well, I want to beat Zelfri and put his name on my link anyways. Jevil ends up actually being at the Grand Laboratories because he's getting an artifact that happens to be detecting those with the plague. So Volk is definitely like, we need to skedaddle right now. We need to get out of here so we can get as far away from him as possible. Volk decides he needs to figure out what these black bones are. So he needs to make a stop with his dad to figure out what the heck's going on with those. But before he does that, he does stop in and talk with Vethica, and she's very absorbed into her work. Her quarters are literally strewn about with anything and everything possibly to do with the Kepras or Grotto. Pretty much anything, any kind of information that she'd have on those topics. And Volk kind of goes in with a peace offering with the map of the Grotto Labyrinth, and she starts to explain her descent into the plague.
She talks a little bit about how she infected her Eldrin, and that she still even struggles with some of the negative thoughts that the plague brought out. And that one of the reasons that she does want to bond with the Kepra is because she's hoping that their magic will help kind of put her mindset back to where it originally was.
We were discussing back with Colosseum Arcanus with the time frame of how long they have as far as Arcanus go. It's not so much that they're permanently infected after 6 months. Like, if they have the plague, if they kill their Eldrin after 6 months, or don't kill their Eldrin after 6 months, it's that their morality and their emotions and their empathy is completely stripped away by that time, by that 6 month roll around, which is why any Arcanist that has had the plague after 6 months is essentially too far gone. And Vethica was right at that line there, because since she infected her own Eldrin, she thought that was a good idea. And Vethica tells Volk that he really should just rid himself of the plague and search for another nightmare. Because that's what Volk said she should do, essentially, is, well, why don't you just go get another Thunderbird? She's like, well, why don't you just kill your nightmare and go get another one? So Volk does steel himself to basically say that he will if he falls too far, and if it has the thoughts of trying to infect Luther as well. And that brings us into chapter 19.
Chapter 19 is the lightning straits. So Luther, after this conversation, really tells Volk that he feels like it's his job to protect Volk from the plague.
And I absolutely love Luther's conviction to Volk, not just because he's the Eldrin, but who Luther is in general. And again, we have the guilt from Mathis as well, but I love Luther so much as a character.
Volk is preparing himself to go into Karna's quarters. So as per their agreement, she helped sneak in with Theasin, and he's going to spend the nights in their bed. So he's getting comfy in the corners. He ends up having a dream of Zelfri meeting Eventide. Finds out that Eventide's town was destroyed by pirates. And as they're going through the lightning straits, he realizes that the Frith Guild is really positioned itself to make it through safely. So they have Gentile, who's going to protect them from any lightning that's coming. They have Ruma's Leviathan, who's going to direct the ship and kind of navigate the currents as well. So very, very prepared for getting through the lightning straits.
So long as you don't grab a surge stone from the cliff like Zelfrey did and get shocked.
You can't fix stupid.
Yes. And even at this point, Zelfrey's like, I thought the surgeon was probably pretty bored right now, so I figured I'd give him something to do. I just love how witty and sardonic Zelfrey is, even in his youth.
We do come to find out that Linus is actually serving under Captain Redbeard. Zelfrey meets back up with Linus once they get through the straits, and he wants Linus to help him find something called the Mother of Shapeshifters.
And then picking up into chapter 20, Retribution. So Volk wakes up in Karna's bed and kind of has this remind himself where he is and that he's in the quarters of an airship and not standing outside on a port. And he sees Karna's Eldrin in the corner of the room, and this is the true form, or I guess I should rephrase myself to say the true shape of the doppelganger, as an amalgamation of scarecrow and person. It's got grayish skin stretched over tawny hay. It doesn't have any eyes. It does have a smile slit that is cut into the top skin. And like we've talked about with the mask that Hellion has, which is Dread Pirate Callisto's true form Manicore, that has a white mask that is literally just 2 eye slots and a mouth slot. Still creeps me out to this day. I don't like it. I hate the description of the doppelganger too, just because of that, and I just don't like it.
It's very creepy.
And Luther, where is Luther at? He's not in the cabin with him. Like, what the heck? So I guess Volk didn't need protection that night in Karna's room.
He didn't need Luther, at least.
Maybe Luther's like, hey, Mathis had things he would do, so I'm going to give him some space. You got to put the tie on the doorknob, okay? So all of a sudden, Volk looks back to the Scarecrow, or the Scarecrow doppelganger and the doppelganger is back into a normal-looking person, or as close to normal, I guess, as we can expect. And just kind of like, yep, not many people have actually seen me in my normal state, but just want to let you know, everybody's waiting for you upstairs, so whenever you're ready, you know. And this makes me super excited because we get more lessons and instruction on imbuing itself. And this is one of those, absolutely love the imbuing process. And we basically are explained from Jose that where you take a magical ability, a magical creature part, and a star shard, and you get an item. It's an equation. Now, whether you use 9 or less star shards, it is just a trinket. And if you use 10 or more star shards, gives you an artifact. And star shards are essentially the sponge along with the glue. And then the magic is essentially the water that the star shard absorbs into it. And it all depends on what mystical creature part you're using and what magic you're imbuing it with. So basically give you some kind of a trinket or artifact, and then just curiosity, what would you use as far as like if you were to make your own trinket, Scott? What would you make?
The magic I would want, we saw the anti-gravity from Rizzles at the end of Coliseum Arcanus, and that would just be so much fun to have that as kind of a imbued magic. So I think if you could get some sort of nightmare armor piece to go along with that, you could then have an armor set, or at least an armor piece that lets you kind of change directions mid-battle. I just feel like it would open up a lot of cool possibilities.
Kind of like you turn on the anti-grav and you're like, your body would go completely horizontal midair.
That's what I feel like it would be. Like just a little bit of quick change of direction in a way that people shouldn't be able to move.
That's pretty awesome. I've honestly pondered this for quite a while, and I would personally want to bond with a Typhoon Dragon. Of all the things, I'm not really sure what I would want to make and what mystical creature part I would want to use with it, because Typhoon Dragons, they can wield lightning and they can breathe underwater. I guess I would want some kind of fire immunity, but I don't know if that would work. So I still have to ponder that. It's one of those like I'm still trying to think what would be a good combination there, and it's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I mean, I was with you too. The Rizzle magic, I was like, man, anti-grav for sure. But then, what do I put it in? Like, that's the tough piece to figure out.
Yeah. Anybody that's listening, if you guys want to comment what creature you would like to bond with, and if you know what kind of trinket you would like to make with your mystical creature that you'd like to bond with, let us know on like Facebook, or drop a comment, or a review, whatever. Let us know. We want to know. Volk has some pride in his father finally, and this is one of those proud moments because he can see that Jose is really a good person. He's a very learned person when it comes to imbuing that kind of thing. Jose has a relic keeper parchment that can essentially identify a mystical trinket. So Volk asks him about these black bones that he has, and Jose puts it on there and tries it, and parchment doesn't bring anything up, doesn't say anything. And Jose is basically saying that relic keepers can only identify magics that are the same tier or lower tiered than themselves. So we know that relic keepers are tier 3 mystical creature. So the fact that this bone is not being recognized by this parchment, we automatically know that it's above a tier 3. We also know that Theasin couldn't identify the world serpent scale. He knows it was something extremely powerful. He doesn't know what it was. He doesn't know what the base material was. So makes you wonder, what are these bones? Since he cannot feel the magic from them, like Volk does. It's that kind of like, what are these? Why is it Volk? Why is it always Volk?
Why is it always you three?
Exactly. So Jose does start to mold the bones into the metal, and he did do quite a lot of like back and forth with Volk about, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Because this is not something you can take back. And Volk again is like, well, I mean, if your parchment can't identify it, it's stronger than at least a tier 3 mystical creature. So whatever it came from, it's probably going to be a relatively good creature. So Volk does need some extra help though with this imbuing, especially with the amount of magic that it's going to be used.
So he ends up merging with Luther so that Luther can actually push magic into it as well. So they're hesitant to merge with the plague, but this is one of the times where they do it. They know that there's not as much risk of infecting Luther at this point.
And we do know that as long as Volk doesn't get injured while merged with Luther, there wouldn't be a problem with the plague. Jose does craft a 1.5-handed sword, and I guess really more so like a true 2-handed sword. And Volk's kind of not sure how to take this because the sword that Volk was using that Mathis made was a short sword to begin with. Jose understands that nightmare magic is going to make this sword a lot lighter than what is to be expected from an actual 2-handed longsword. So he does say the weight's not going to be a problem. Jose is physically making the sword with his hands because he could just heat the metal up and push the bone in and imbue it. Like, amazing. I love it. I love the fact that he could just sit there and, you know what, I need to heat this part up a little bit more. I need to cool this part off a little bit so that I have this exactly formed like I want it to. So he does end up making this awesome 2-handed longsword, and Jose hands over 2 star shards to Volk, and Volk's like, nah, bro. We ain't doing this. I ain't making multiple of these things. I don't know what this bone is, but we are going to do this. We're going to do this right. And Volk's like, I want to make an artifact. You don't understand, anything less than 10 star shards is going to break because of the decay dust, and I don't want to have to keep remaking stuff. Volk is, and the other part I love is that Volk is finally making his weapon with Luther, and not just the shield, but like a proper weapon. Luther does give us a little quote, and I love my Luther quotes. Luther says, "A sword is used to fell the wicked. Its name should instill fear in those who revel in their sins." Again, just goosebumps. Love it. So Jose is like, hey, we have to name this sword. This is an artifact. We have to name it. All the great swords of the past, they all have names. Like, let's look at Lord of the Rings. You got Glamdring, you got Sting. So Volk sits there and contemplates, like, what would Zaxxas name it? What would Ilya name it? What would Hexa name it? And he finally settles on a pretty BA sword name, and he settles on Retribution. And I got legit goosebumps reading this.
It's an amazing name. He talks about how Josei puts his own little emblem signature onto the blade as well. So extremely well crafted. You know it was made right. They made it with the 10-star shards. So this is a sword for the long run.
And this is kind of where we get left off at. We don't have any more information. We don't know what it's going to do or anything else like that. We just know that he made it. And it took all of his effort and his magic, but him and Luther, they created their weapon together. So we'll have to wait till next week to find out what this sword can do. And in the meantime, we will go over this week's bestiary section. Unfortunately, we don't have any real information or any new Eldrin to go over this week, but we did kind of want to give some honorable mentions that don't have any information on realistically, so we can't really talk about much. But again, just kind of go over some of the non-mentioned Eldrin. Starting off, we have the Jinn, the Death Worm, going all the way back to the first book. I'm pretty certain I forgot to mention the cockatrice. And then we have the Bake Kujira.
That was how I was going to say it as well. So
Okay.
It's a giant whale.
Anybody that wants to let us know how to properly enunciate, please let us know. And finally, there's a Capricorn that we saw. The giant whale and the Capricorn, both of those were seen in the painted cactus, the bar in Nunora.
There are also a few other magical items that get mentioned that to call out as well. So we've seen so far glowstones that are used in lanterns instead of actual fires. So just a few other places where magical items are being used.
And I just love how immersive everything is with it. It's not just people or creatures. There's everything in between. There, like these glowstones. This is how most people illuminate their house or the building or whatever. So these are like a staple item with everything.
It really helps build out the world just in terms of if magic were prevalent, what ways would it impact your life? How would it kind of sneak in? I think glowstones are a good example of, hey, this is a better candle that can get used. Few other things that as we reach them we'll bring up as well, just cool ways magic is being used.
And with that concludes this week's episode. We want to thank everybody for listening and to remind everybody that we do post a new episode every Wednesday morning around 11 Eastern, 10 Central, and 8 Pacific Standard. We do also have smaller chapter portions on YouTube as well. So if you can't sit down and watch the full 35 to 40 minute YouTube video, we do every day after the release, we do individual chapters, make it a little bit easier to digest. We are on all podcasting platforms and on YouTube as well, as mentioned. We do want to thank our editor, Dan Mackison, for including pictures and links to everything in here. He does quite a lot of work for us, and we do really appreciate what he does for us. If you want to reach out, you can send us an email at frithguildpod@gmail.com or on Facebook or pretty much any other social media platform. You can look us up at Frith Guild Podcast. And we do want to thank Frith Chronicles Wiki, as it is an amazing resource. We use it quite a lot when we're looking at our bestiary section. Just want to mention that a link to everything is down in the description section below for both podcasts and YouTube. Thanks all for listening. It's like going from Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask. You got your main storyline, and then you got your side quest